Intervals, not another video. Yes, it's true. We have another one here for you. Specific intervals, part 3. So eventually we want to be able to find any interval from any note. So here we go. Our objectives are to speed review the comparisons between intervals, scales, and half steps. And then to apply these comparisons only to the intervals that were in the perfect interval group. So that'd be firsts, fourths, fifths, and eighths. So here we go. The review. We had the major scale formula, which was whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. We had the major scale intervals, which we had the perfect first, major second, major third, and so forth. And then the half steps away from each of those intervals from any one note, which would be 2, 4, 5, 7, 9, 11, 12. So now in this chart below, remember we had perfect first is 0 half steps away, major second is 2 half steps away, and so forth. Now let's apply it. Ultimately, we want to be able to find any interval from any note. So we look here in this chart, and in this chart we have the intervals in this column, so the first, the fourth, the fifth, and the eighth, and then the perfect intervals, which we knew from that last chart, which a perfect first is 0 half steps away, a perfect fourth is 5 half steps away, a perfect fifth is 7 half steps away, and then a perfect eighth is 12 half steps away. So now, let's apply. Here's our interval of firsts. A perfect first is 0 half steps away. So the question is, how many half steps away from any note is an augmented first? All you got to do is add 1 to that. That's by augmenting it. You augment the number of half steps from the perfect. So it's 1 half step away. So an augmented first from any note is a half step above or below, depending which direction you're going. Now, how about a diminished first? How far away is a note from one note to the other if it's a diminished first away? If you guessed that it is a half step below, then you are correct. So now if we look, here's how many half steps away any one note would be in firsts. So a diminished first is a half step below, a perfect first is 0 half steps away from a note, and an augmented first is 1 half step away, above or below, depending which direction you go. This -1 means you go in the opposite direction. So now, let's look at the interval of fourths. A perfect fourth is 5 half steps away. So now, how many half steps away is a diminished fourth from a note? Well, if a perfect fourth is 5 half steps away, to diminish an interval, you lower it by a half step. So it's 4 half steps away. Let's look at augmented. An augmented fourth is a little bit higher than a perfect fourth. So if a perfect fourth is 5 half steps away, an augmented fourth is 6 half steps away. Let's do it again. Here are our fourth intervals. So a diminished fourth is 4 half steps away from a note, a perfect fourth is 5 half steps away, and an augmented fourth is 6 half steps away. Let's look at fifths. A perfect fifth is 7 half steps away. So can you tell me what an augmented fifth would be? How many half steps away it would be? The answer is 8 half steps away. How about a diminished fifth? If we look at that, how many half steps away would that be? The answer would be 6. So here are how many half steps away our fifth intervals are. Let's go to our eighth intervals, like a perfect eighth, diminished eighth, augmented eighth. How many half steps away from a note is a perfect eighth? 12. If that's the case, how many half steps away is an augmented eighth? It would be 13 half steps away. And a diminished eighth would be 11 half steps away. So here are your half steps for all your perfect intervals. Thanks for watching.